to you at all. Do it. Oh! Okay, the last time someone sent us one of these glue-on Android Auto Apple CarPlay screens, it was junk. That was from a company called Carpodgo. This is from Carpodgo. And this is a lot better. This is a fully laminated screen, and it looks OEM. Our last add-on Android Auto unit by Carpodgo was junk. It broke. We sent it back. They sent us a new one, and we didn't even bother installing it. It looked like an Atari Lynx or a Sega Game Gear because the screen wasn't laminated, unlike this one. It had flat matte black plastic with a screen inside at a low frame rate. This one gets 60 frames per second, and it truly does look OEM. Alright, so here we are in the car, and this unit is hooked up. The screen is very nice. That's the first thing I noticed. This whole thing is laminated, and this is just temporarily set up here. I don't have it permanently set up because it takes up, for me, too much of the dashboard. So every car is different, of course, so this may not, of course, apply to you at all. Do it. Oh! Just put it in 4 low. But for demonstration purposes, let's just keep it like this. So this thing shines insofar as that the screen is laminated. We've had cheaper versions of this thing. Not this thing, but products like it. These Android screens or Apple CarPlay screens. And they've been a lot cheaper, meaning it looks like the old ones look like a Atari Lynx sitting on your dashboard. So it wasn't laminated, it was just matte black plastic with a pretty not good screen. This one's all laminated, so it looks like a tablet or an iPhone or whatever. The screen is plenty fast, it's normal. This looks, like OEM stuff. I won't go over what the screen looks like. It looks good, trust me. Everything's fast, all your apps and everything that you need are all over here. So you got everything that you'd expect from something like this. Now, the reason why you'd want this is if you had an old infotainment like this thing. This is like a Commodore 64 or a late 80s ATM screen, color ATM screen. It's slow, it's laggy. And you might ask, well, why not get something like this, integrated into the old school screen? And that's because the HVAC controls, unfortunately on this car, this GX, are integrated into this screen, for no reason at all, just to be complicated. And I don't want to take any Chinese aftermarket stuff and piggyback it, take this dash apart, piggyback it inside here. Because Murphy's Law says when it's either freezing cold or 1,000,000 degrees out here in the desert, that it's going to screw up the HVAC controls. So that's where screens like this come in. You put them wherever it works for you. Again, we can see here on the GX, we really don't have an intelligent place to mount this. Can't mount it there. This useless clock, this useless area here, you can't mount it really here. Can't mount it down here. The dash is curved and crowded up here. You could probably put it over here somewhere, a little bit low, but it's going to be out of your reach. So again, every application is different, and you know that getting into this. All right, with that said, I would have, if I were to do this somewhat permanently, I'd mount it somewhere here on a GX. That is, if you don't mind losing a little bit of visibility. I know on camera, as I hold the camera up here, it looks, hey, it fits great, it's all good, and everybody's different. This is just me. I want all the dash I can get. But if this doesn't bother you, what you can do is, because you're not going to have all this junk, all these wires and nonsense, it's just because we're testing different equipment and stuff, like dash cams, whatever. Point is, you're not going to have all this junk on your dash. So you can actually mount this unit over into the center here, right on top of your screen, and it really does give off an OEM look. These are not like the older ones, again, that had that Atari Lynx, look to it with cheap matte plastic with a cheap screen. This looks just like what you'd get in a new Toyota, like our Sienna, completely laminated. Again, looks like a phone or an iPod or whatever. So it gives you multiple mounts. You know how they work. They're suction, they're 3M VHB stickers. Do what works for you. I would recommend making sure the base sits on something flat, like down here. So you don't want this thing hanging in the air, because it's not going to be able to support its own weight under with that little right angle, whatever, elbow, macaroni elbow clip on the back. What I'm rambling here is you got to use common sense here. Obviously the mounts are universal. You got to work with it to make it work for you. If we were to do this permanently, I'd use the macaroni elbow mount that you see here. I'd center it, and then down here on the bottom I'd put some 3M tape and a thin strip, and kind of glue it to this flat area here, and that would keep it from vibrating up and down, because it's going to want to lift up and down a little bit. And so I'd do something like that. But we live off-road. Most people live on-road. We'll just be happy just as long as this thing is resting on the dash. They're good to go. Now, as far as what does it do? It does all the Android Auto stuff. There's no problems that we can see. We've played around with the screen for a little bit. You know what these things are. What you want to know is it nice or is it cheap looking? It's nice looking. And will it last? That's $1 million question. Nobody knows. You know where these things come from, and it's up in the air whether they're going to last or not. But for the price point, you know what you're getting into. You're getting into a affordable price point. It's from China. But the big takeaway is this setup does look way more OEM than anything else. I know I've said it a million times that this thing looks like a tablet or some sort of cell phone, and that's nice. The old ones did not look like that, and that's the big takeaway here. You may not be able to realize that if you're just browsing the internet, because they all look like screens, but this one really does mimic the OEM setup. So as far as features, it's got everything, and it's got a rear view camera. I'm not going to install the rear view camera because this car already has one, and those things are kind of like a gimmick. And most people are not going to mess around with the rear view camera or all the other little gimmicky features. They just want this thing to show maps. It gets 60 frames a second. It moves good, just like our Sienna. The screen it does everything it's supposed to do. There's no latency. It boots up quick, and that's it. So it's just a matter of figuring out where you're going to mount this. On an older car with a lower dash with less of these airbags and all this puffery and nonsense down here, you find a place for this. And as long as you mount it rigidly and you kind of think outside of the box and get this thing to really be stable in your car, this is a good addition, because this really is OEM level screen quality. Finally, there used to be a time when all this aftermarket stuff used to be better than OEM. It used to be a legit, I'm talking about your car stereo, whatever you wanted to put on your car, your lights, your shocks, whatever. Anything. Aftermarket was always better than OEM. But, in recent decades, OEM has caught up and now surpassed all the aftermarket stuff. So you get all this aftermarket stuff, these screens and all, and it's just cheap junk. And, it's not an upgrade, it's a downgrade. So it's good to see this company here making a legit OEM style screen that you can add to an older car to really give it a, modern refresh, blah, 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 all that corny stuff, but not appearing like a downgrade at the same time. So that's the whole point of this.